Welcome back to Data Driven Finance, brought to you by Envestnet Yodlee. I'm Mike Stiles, and my guest today is Bruce Schilder, North American Open Banking and Fintech Lead at Accenture. Bruce comes out of Syracuse's Whitman School of Management, and before Accenture, spent time at JPMorgan Chase and Sterling National Bank. No telling really where the conversation's going to go, but I do know we're going to cover open banking and digital transformation in banking. So, Bruce, thanks a lot for being with us today.
Great to be here, Mike. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'm excited to have you, and I'm struck by your title, actually. It sounds like Accenture, which is a big picture management consultancy that serves all verticals, sees open banking as kind of an inevitable future in financial services, which is, I guess, why they put a lead like you on it. Is it inevitable?
Thanks for the kind words, Mike. It's an honor to lead the practice within Accenture. I've been doing it for about 3 years now. We absolutely believe in open banking and eventually open finance, and truly do believe that it is inevitable. And not only inevitable, but we're already well underway. Open banking is actually nothing new. It's been around since the 90s, but we're now seeing technology catch up to this trend and start a wave of new innovation, as well as regulation, which will further catalyze the growth. So I personally view open banking as an opportunity driver, and I really do believe it gives financial institutions the ability to bring non-traditional use cases to life for their customers.
What do you think is driving these changes or this evolution of financial services? Is it that tech is creating new customer expectations, or is it people demanding better banking experiences and that's what's forcing the tech forward?
As you mentioned earlier, I come from the banking industry. I spent most of my career in banks in New York City before moving to California and joining Accenture. And really, from my perspective, the innovation is always driven by consumer demand. Technology is really just the conduit. And if nobody wanted the technology or it didn't make their lives easier, then nobody would invest in building it, and it wouldn't really exist today.
How do you see the challenges of providing connected banking, interconnected data for efficient, accurate, personalized services, while also facing that consumer reluctance to just get out there and make all their financial data available? How do you get the best of both happening?
Yeah, it's a great question. In this day and age, everybody wants their experience to be convenient and seamless, but they're also wary of sharing data, obviously due to security issues and identity theft. Fortunately, there's an ecosystem of banks and non-banks collaborating as we speak around how to secure this inevitable transfer of data through APIs, specifically the Financial Data Exchange APIs. And the Financial Data Exchange is a non-for-profit organization that's helping us drive this change. They've really become the industry norm in lieu of inefficient and unsecure screen scraping. That was like the old method, and now we're moving towards APIs and more secure data transfer. There's still a bit of a glass ceiling when it comes to adoption, but we're making really good progress as we move into open finance. And when I say open finance, I mean true cross-industry data sharing, not just banking. And when we achieve that, I think we'll start to see adoption rates truly skyrocket.
What's your take on whether or not connected banking can be fully executed on the existing infrastructure? I mean, how big are the changes needed to accommodate what we're talking about here?
Yeah, connected banking can absolutely be executed today, whether it be open banking or simply just building a digital ecosystem for a bank. We do it every day. All banks in North America and globally for that matter run on an ecosystem of technology providers. This makes the interconnected nature of banking really a hard requirement, not a nice to have. But when it comes to sharing consumer permission data from bank to bank, we cross into open banking specifically. That also can be executed on current infrastructure, mainly leveraging those FTX APIs I just mentioned, but also cloud technology and secure authentication protocols. So I think we have the tools that are required today. We just need to leverage them and continue to push that envelope of innovation.
So it sounds like financial institutions who might be taking a wait and see attitude kind of do so possibly at their own risk. But what has to happen to make the connected banking and open banking vision happen? What are some of the biggest remaining barriers?
I definitely think the wait and see approach is behind us. Banks really do need to act. And I am for the most part seeing in the industry that banks are innovating consistently day in and day out. I think one of the biggest challenges we face today are fraud and security. The plumbing is in place, so to speak, but each entity wants to know that the handshake they are making, and I mean the technological handshake via API, is with a trusted party in the ecosystem. And that really can only be achieved with like a trust framework. We need a non-biased third party to facilitate this, and so far there's not been one in the US or North America. We've seen this emerging in Europe, UAE, and Brazil, but not really North America as of yet. And I do hope this is where the ecosystem goes, because that's going to really enable far greater use cases and consumer value. So I'm excited to see that take shape over the next few years.
Do you think that's going to be a government kind of thing that plays that role, or is it possible for the financial organizations to come together in some kind of collaborative effort to get that done?
It could be either or. It usually is, a collaboration between the ecosystem players and the regulators, or potentially even the government or central banks. We've absolutely seen a few different use cases globally. Some are more successful than others. One favorite comes to mind is Brazil, where it's true symbiotic relationship. You cannot be a participant in the ecosystem if you're not also a provider, or I should say, you cannot be a consumer if you're not also a provider. So all participants need to both provide data if they want to consume data. And that by itself injects a bit of trust into the ecosystem, because it's a two-way street in all use cases.
In your experience leading these large scale banking and IT transformations, I guess the question is, how's it going? What have the hardest and easiest parts about it been?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because, all transformations are different, obviously, but some common themes that I see across the board. One, communication issues, mainly between business and technology units. This is, a struggle as old as time. Also, number two, shiny object syndrome, I like to call it, where financial institutions are always going after the next big thing and not sticking to their core strategy or their core values. We'll see a lot of executives come back from a conference or something like that and want to, immediately jump with both feet into new technology, which is great, but really important to stick to core values. And the third one is, I think, ability to create loosely coupled ecosystems where the bank is in control versus the largest vendor in that ecosystem. This last one is where middleware comes into play. And the most successful financial institutions out there today are really being proactive about building their own proprietary APIs, built on proven standards, of course, but truly they own and they maintain their own API layer, which gives them that flexibility and lets them own their own destiny. It's very important to leverage industry standards so you can plug in new technologies and future-proof the organization, but it's also very important to stick to core values and manage the ecosystem effectively. That's really where people like me come in to help formulate and execute that strategy day in and day out.
Technology is only going to come at us faster and faster, exponentially faster. So, what are the time pressures for banks to fully undergo these meaningful digital transformations? I mean, you touched on it a little bit, you can't do the wait and see anymore, but what does the competitive environment look like right now?
This is really an ongoing battle. One transformation might end, but another will begin before that first one ends. And it's a constant game of change management. At any given moment, each financial institution, or even fintech for that matter, probably has 24 plus projects in flight, all to really continuously transform and keep up with innovation so they can continue to compete. So competition is certainly stiff these days, and it takes time, money, and knowledge to succeed. But I think the time aspect is something that the banks will impose on themselves. They're going to set goals for themselves to reach a new feature or the ability to achieve new growth. And that could be achieved through technology, or it could be achieved through business process optimization. So the banks will always set goals for themselves and strive to reach that goal. And then there'll be another one following in its place and another project to reach that goal.
So as we connect all these various financial information sources so players can pull in and use data, what should organizations kind of be wary of as they choose who to get that data from, how to ensure the data they're using is both updated and accurate?
Yeah, this goes back to what I mentioned before around a trust framework and really having a database of trusted ecosystem participants to validate against. So right now we center more around consumer-driven consent, and I don't think that will change. But we validate the credentials that the consumers give us, and then we trust that the data transfer via APIs is secure. But that's not where it stops, of course. We also need to be confident that the next entity that holds the data I just shared with them on behalf of the customer holds it safely as well. So we need to be thinking about protecting data at rest as well as in transit. It's kind of like a game of telephone, and we need to trust that the next person doesn't change the message.
You've been at this a while. Obviously, you've seen how the dawn of the internet and online forced changes on banking. Talk to us about how you're seeing things like cloud technology, fintech, and now AI forcing the new and additional changes on it. What's happening there?
Yeah, I think more so than the internet or cloud, we're seeing a change in the needs for our customers because they live fast lives. They're always mobile, they're always on the go. They need to be able to pay bills anytime, anywhere. They need to be able to send money to anyone at low cost with low risk. The speed of our world today is driving much of the innovation. So you could say that all started with the internet because we all got a taste of immediate gratification, but it's a chicken and the egg scenario. And we'll continue to drive each other. AI is interesting because it gives us the ability to start working more effectively, particularly Gen AI. And while it's early days, many companies beyond just financial institutions are already working with this technology. I don't see AI changing the way we bank just yet, but it certainly is helping us build more banking solutions faster and more efficiently.
So yeah, it sounds like just responding to being able to respond to customer needs and expectations faster. And I know you're not like a security expert or, cybersecurity wonk or anything like that, but on that privacy and data security front, what is a reasonable level of data security for bank customers to expect in this modern age? I mean, what's reasonable for us to demand?
Yeah, I'm certainly not a security expert, but security is baked into everything we do. It's baked into every design that we provide, and it definitely needs to be top of mind for every bank, and really for every customer. I myself, of course, am a customer of many financial institutions, and I've been, unfortunately, the victim of identity theft. So throughout my years working in branches and back offices of financial institutions, I could really think about the interactions and the business processes, really from an experience perspective, but also from a security perspective. And what I could say is banks put a lot of focus on security and privacy, and they should. It takes a huge amount of investment to secure data, especially when the new norm is for that data to be shared beyond the four walls of the bank. So there's a lot of innovation in this space, but really the core principles of making sure the data is encrypted at rest and in transit will always be true. And we use proven frameworks for authentication protocols and encryption mechanisms to be able to transfer that data from party to party or from system to system in a secure manner. So no data transfers out in the open, when it's moving beyond the four walls of a bank. It's fully encrypted. And, each one of these relationships is not like an open door. It is a negotiation that is thoughtfully managed by the risk departments of the bank and carefully tested before it goes live. So what I could say is that, a simple use case like sharing data from bank to bank to give somebody a full view of their personal financial management takes a lot of time and careful thinking and execution.
Well, parting thoughts. What message do you think banks and financial institutions need to hear most right now from consultants like yourself that are able to see what's going on big picture?
Well, it's funny you say it that way because I think that's actually just it. Look at the big picture. Don't get so bogged down in the weeds with a single project or initiative. Stick to core values, focus on customer value. And I really think the money, success, or growth, whatever your goal is, will follow. So I absolutely think that the time to act is now and nobody should be waiting. I think a wave of open banking is upon us, especially as the Dodd-Frank 1033 regulation takes effect later this year. All banks will be forced to act. And I think whether you're a industry leader or a fast follower, there are absolutely things that you could do today to get ready for this change and to continue to stay ahead of the competition.
Well, Bruce, thanks again for agreeing to be a guest on the show and being with us. If listeners want to find out more about Accenture and what it does in this space, or you, what's the best way for them to do that?
It's been my pleasure, Mike. Thanks for having me. What I could say is, follow me on LinkedIn or reach out to me at bruce.schilder@accenture.com. I'm always open to a quick chat or meeting new people.
Sounds great. We appreciate it. And for our listeners, subscribe to the show because this is the kind of quality guest you're going to get every time. And if you want to see how aggregated financial data might be of great use in your business, visit resources.yodlee, that's YODLEE.com/podcasts. And we'll see you next time on Data Driven Finance.